Hello and welcome back to my channel. I am Shannon, also known as Hippie Dark Arts, and for this video I am doing a tutorial out of Kolbie Blume's wilderness landscape books, and this one is called Cotton Candy Sky. I used a number 6 round for most of this, and Winsor Newton paints, professional grade paints, as well as, you know what, I don't even remember what the paper was that I used. It was probably Stonehenge. This was a cute little tutorial that I followed along with. I think I do better when I follow along with live tutorials or video tutorials, but I like the ease, or what's the word I'm looking for? Flexibility of having a book tutorial, because I don't have to keep pausing the video and figuring out what I like and what I don't like. So this one was really one of my first attempts at following a book tutorial, and you can see as we go through, there are certain things that I definitely struggle with as far as following along with the directions. I'm not new to watercolor, so I have a good idea of how watercolor works. I have a great understanding of wet on wet and wet on dry. So really a lot of this for me is just practice, getting better at using certain techniques, using certain painting techniques. I don't necessarily do very well at eyeballing where to put things in the composition so that they will turn out right. So that's something that I need to work on. I also need to not overwork the paintings that I'm doing. And sometimes when I'm following a book tutorial, I will tend to jump ahead. That is me. I'm an Aries. I skip steps, and sometimes it works and sometimes I have to go back and fix it. So right now I'm doing a wet on wet technique where I'm really just laying in the background. This part was pretty easy. I didn't really struggle too much with laying in the background. I don't think I placed the yellow, which was eventually going to be the glow of the sunset, in the correct place, and you'll notice later on in the video me trying to correct that. And then the other thing, I have a hard time with water control. I tend to have too little. Like, my water tends to dry faster than when I'm watching a tutorial, faster than the teachers. And I always think that I'm getting too much water, and then for whatever reason it never seems to be enough. So I'm always adding more water to try to get the wet on wet effects that I'm looking for. So here you see me trying to perfect my background, get it the way that I want it. I did use a flat brush for part of that background, and that flat brush comes from, her name is Christy with Painting Crush, I think is her YouTube channel, but she has the Art for Joy watercolor brush set, and that's where that comes from. I will try to remember to link that in the description. So you can see I'm still just trying to perfect the background. And really this is just going to be a little bit of me just chatting with you while I work this tutorial. I'm not going to try to teach the tutorial, one, because it's not mine to teach, but really I just want to share my thought process and my frustrations, as well as the things that I enjoyed while I was painting this. So I'm starting to add in some other colors just to try to bring in that cotton candy look into the sky. I think in the tutorial the sky is a little bit darker before bringing in the pink, so I probably should have made it a little bit darker. And I think you will see down the road I try to go back in and darken it up a little bit. Wet on wet technique is one of my favorite techniques to use when I am watercoloring. I love watercolor because it is so uncontrollable and unpredictable. Like, we know the techniques and we know what's supposed to happen when we are using watercolor, but it doesn't always work that way. And that's actually what I really love about watercolor. I love the way that it blooms. And here you can see I finished adding the purple and pink and let it dry. And now I'm getting it wet again. But really, I think because in my regular life I tend to be a little bit too controlling about things. I think that's one of the reasons why I like watercolor as much as I do, because you can't control the outcome. You can't control what's going to happen. You can use the techniques and the paint to the best of your ability and your knowledge, and a lot of it is just, one, happy accidents, and then two, hoping it turns out for the best, right? I like to paint lots of different things. So I really enjoy painting landscapes and seascapes. It's not something that I am extremely comfortable with. I haven't done a lot of them, but I do feel like when I've done them, they've come pretty easily. I also really enjoy doing architecture. I like to do watercolor architecture with like pen ink wash. So using watercolor and then also a waterproof ink pen. That's been some of my favorite paintings that I've done. So you'll probably see me do some of those on this channel as well. And then like most people, I enjoy flowers and animals and, fruits and vegetables too. I tend to see those more as practice. I haven't created a lot of art with those subjects that I would consider finished art pieces. But I do really enjoy portraits as well, and my portraits tend to be less realistic and more stylized. I love to use unique colors in my portraits, so you won't necessarily see my portraits with skin tones. I like to use some like blues and pinks and purples for the skin tones, and you'll probably see a few of those on my channel at some point as well. But for this one, really what I'm doing here is I'm really just trying to get the sky the way that I want it to be, as well as making sure that I'm mirroring the top to the bottom as best as I can. One thing that really frustrated me when I drew that line, the horizon line or the center line, my paper was not completely dry. And because of that, the line ran and was much thicker than I wanted it to be. I will fix that down the road a little bit, but here I am starting with my happy little trees. I found the trees very easy. I didn't really put a lot of thought into how I was doing them and where I was placing them. However, the second part where you're trying to mirror those trees on the opposite side, that was a little bit more difficult, because then I had to pay more attention to the shape of the tree and the length or the height of the tree so that it mirrored the opposite side correctly. I think I could have made the trees a little bit bigger than I did. The way that this painting turns out, it really makes the trees look like they are very, very deep in the background because they are so small. And I think that that was the idea that she was going for in the book. I just think I made them smaller than I should have. I probably should have made them a little bit bigger. But that's okay. A lot of what I'm doing is still practicing different techniques from different people, really trying to find my style. And I really think that the best way to go about finding your style is practicing other people's techniques, practicing other people's tutorials, and really trying to point out and identify the pieces that you like or the pieces that stand out to you, and then starting to incorporate those things into your own original ideas. That's really kind of my main focus on style development, and that's what I intend to use as I go through developing a curriculum for myself, to kind of try to, work out what is mine, what is my style, what is my brand. And I think eventually we all get to this place where we've figured out what we like to do, what we don't like to do, what we like the look of, and what we don't like the look of. And sometimes the art that we like to look at is not necessarily the same as the art that we like to create. And there's nothing wrong with that. I think that that's a great way of helping us to realize that in the art world, there really truly is room for all of us. Because there is so much art out there that I find beautiful, gorgeous. I follow lots of different people, Shai Barton, Lee Ellickson, Dustin Ballard. They all make really gorgeous art, Mimi Moo illustrations, and I don't know that I could make art that looks like theirs. They each have a different, unique style to it, and I love looking at it. I'm a supporter of all of them, and so I buy their art and I surround myself with their art. And in doing that, I don't have to try to mimic or try to recreate their looks, because their style, I can already tell you, is not the same as my style. And that's a great thing, because there's lots and lots of artists out there, and you can find artists who have styles that you like or styles that are going to be similar to your style, and you can use their art and their YouTubes, their tutorials, whatever, to help you further develop your style so that you can make it your own. But then I think it's important that we find people who find artists out there who don't have a similar style to us, so that we can support them as well, particularly if their art style is something that we really enjoy looking at. So back to this painting. I am now working on the mirror side, or the reflection of the trees. And this was definitely the most difficult part of the painting for me. Just trying to make sure that I mimicked the reflection in a way that wasn't too drastically different. And that I really did struggle with, particularly because with the first side, I really did just make my happy little trees in any mishmash manner. And I believe Kolbie uses the term scrubbly, I think, or scrumbly in the book. And that's really just kind of what I did when I made these trees. I just kind of scribbled back and forth to make the branches. So yeah, this is just one of the tutorials that I have done, from her book. I've done some other tutorials. I didn't film all of them, but I did some that I have posted on my Instagram. So you can definitely check those out. Whenever I do a tutorial or I make art that is following along with somebody else's teachings, I do make sure to credit them in my posts. So I will be definitely crediting Kolbie on this video, as well as whenever I upload pictures or of my paintings on Instagram. So I'm almost done here with the mirror side, and I believe once I finish the mirror side, I kind of mess around with trying to figure out which side I actually like to have as the upright side, and then which side I like to have as the mirror side. I want to say that this tutorial took me about an hour to complete if you take out the drying time. Obviously, other people can whip things out like this much quicker, and some people probably don't take quite as long. But when I took the drying time out of it, I think it took me about an hour to complete. And so ultimately, I liked the outcome of it. And thank you so much for joining me.